Good afternoon, everyone. You probably all know me. I'm John Burke. Thanks for coming along this afternoon. It's a little bit over a month since we met here last, so I thought it was a good idea to give you all an update of what's going on, and you can sort of query us on what we've been up to. So the presenters today is myself. Greg Clark's going to give us an update on what's happening in the R&D, the project's underway there. And Nathan Flowerday, who's KVH's operational manager, is going to give a presentation on crop protection and some of the tools KVH is rolling out to try and assist growers in the priority zone and in the risk zone around Te Puke. First of all, are there any media present? No one looking suspicious sitting next to you? Oh, there are. But they're not media, okay. Yeah, they're probably all down in Christchurch, and it's pretty sobering, isn't it? Sort of brings reality home to everyone. Okay, I'll kick off. And what I'd like to do is just give you a quick situation update. You're probably all familiar with looking at the stats that are on the web, but this is a bit more detailed. I might just remove this. Okay, currently there's 150 PSA positive orchards across the country. When I say across the country, most of them are actually located here in Te Puke. There's 114 of those 150 are located in this region, which is 76%, so that's a fairly significant statistic. That's obviously Asian-like and Italian-like PSA. We have a total of 40 Italian-like isolates or Italian isolates that have been identified. Those are all within the priority zone, and we have, amongst those other tests that we've done, we've identified 28 Asian-like isolates. So we have a total of 68 isolate results out of a total of 150 results. So obviously there's quite a few PSA positive orchards out there which we don't know the isolate of. They are mostly outside the zone, and we're pretty comfortable at this stage based on what we're seeing on the ground that there's no Italian infection in those, but we're watching those very carefully. The big issue, which I think we spoke about when I was last here, is just this isolate testing. The rate of results are coming through at about 10 to 15 isolate results per week. Some of you might think that seems awfully high compared to what's coming through, but a lot of the results we're getting are no result. And that is the problem. It's a time of the year where there's a real difficulty in isolating pure cultures from which the DNA can be looked at from during the process. The actual that is the bottleneck. The actual reading of the DNA is not an issue. It is actually the bacteriologist's role in isolating the pure culture that is really the problem. So the samples we're sending in, they grow culture off those samples. There's a heap of bacteria out of the culture they grow, and it's really getting worse and worse as the year has progressed. And then, so there's a real issue then in reculturing until you get the pure culture of PSA, from which you can identify what isolate type it is. And there's the samples in there. Some of you guys would have had samples taken quite some time ago, and they're going on a merry-go-round trying to get that pure sample. I asked Dave Smith and the Grower Services team to contact everyone this week. I hope you have been contacted to tell you actually what's happening and what's happening with your sample. But if you've been in there for a long time, and I know a lot of results came through in the last few days, there's a hang of a high chance that there's going to be a no result from you. And that's a real issue for us in trying to identify the infection footprint. 47 K-pins we have open case management files for. 40 of those are the Italian, but there's another 7 K-pins which have secondary symptoms which haven't had an isolate result, which we have automatically opened a file for. So we're not waiting for the isolate result. Those are gold orchards, and it's quite clear that if they've got Italian PSA because of the rampant spread of infection on those vines. Approximately out of the total 47 capons that we have case management for, 15 are expressing secondary symptoms. Okay, so they've gone to secondary. Some of those were primary when they were initially, we had the isolate result from, but they've now gone to secondary. And all of the secondary symptoms we've seen is in gold. There's none in green. What we've done, and I'll show you a map in a moment, but we have changed the priority zone. We've increased it because we started to hit the border in terms of the infected area, and we wanted to have a buffer within the priority zone, so we've increased that. So the extended priority zone, and it's the bottom bullet point there, we now have 206 capons in that zone, a total of 1,070 hectares, canopy hectares, and in there is roughly about 10% of that of gold. And that's significant because it's the gold that we are most concerned about at this stage. The affected area, that's the area that has comprising those 47 capons, totals roughly a third of that area of the extended priority zones, 333 hectares. Of that, 17 capons or 61 hectares, or only 18% is gold, and 30 capons, 272 hectares is green. So that's a bit of an update of the situation. What I'll do is we'll run through our presentation and then take questions at the end. Thank you. So here's a bit of a map of the revised or extended priority zone. I think you're familiar with the map. Te Puke here. We have Te Matai Road running up here, number 1 road here, and I think when I spoke to you, we were really concerned about if we got infection on number 1 road. We have got an infected orchard. In fact, we've got other orchards in here displaying some symptoms which we're really concerned about as well. So we have extended our boundary further out onto number 1 road. We have also pushed our boundary out westward up Te Matai Road here. The boundary on this side hasn't changed too much. It's been more of a spread we're sort of seeing, or concern we're seeing on the western side, which is not where we wanted to see the spread. So the red dots here, obviously the infected orchards. Some of you might be counting up, there's only 40 shown there, so the 7 secondaries haven't been mapped, and they need to be mapped, but they're all within the zone as well. There's some yellow ones, they're very difficult to see scattered around. Those are the Asians, and of course the green dots are capons. So when I spoke to you last, we talked about a battle plan, and at that stage we had a fairly confined infection in here. It was just around here, and some scattered. There's 25 infected orchards at that stage, and we had a tighter boundary around here, and we felt that we could, if we could determine with reasonable accuracy the perimeter of the infection, we could get in and be very aggressive in the takeout of those vines. What we discovered was an increasing spread in infected orchards we're finding to the north, and we're concerned about orchards up in here. So 2 weeks ago we changed the plan, and the reason behind that was simply we don't know with enough certainty where the infection footprint is at the moment. We're hoping that it's in this zone, but as you guys all recall, there was a big weather event on the 21st of January. We had real strong winds from the southeast that night and rain, big vortexes of wind. The plume model studying we've done shows there's been a big push out in this area, and we're sort of starting to see a little bit of symptomatic spread as a result of that. So that, along with the slow rate of isolate testing and what we're seeing on the ground, led us to believe we haven't got enough certainty about the infection footprint. It's a real mission for us to try and find that, and it'd be great. This is what we really want to do, is try and establish where that footprint is before harvest. With the problems with the isolate testing, what we're really relying on now is what people are observing on the ground, what you as growers are seeing. and we've asked the pack houses to do some rounds of inspection, and that's been very useful to us, and we're picking up more orchards by doing that at a faster rate. The other thing which we're finding is that with younger vines, newly grafted vines or top work vines, where you've got young growth, if on gold, if there's going to be any vines that are going to be infected, it'll be those that the infection will move really quickly on. So we're sort of calling those types of orchards our sentinel orchards, or like your budgie in the coal mine. And what we're going to do is actually, well, we've already done it, is mapped where all those young vines are from a new variety perspective. But any of you growers there who have got young vines, you know, who are sitting over on number 3 road or around in this area here, watch them really closely, because those are the ones that you're going to see issues with first. So as a result of the uncertainty over the footprint, we revised our cutting strategy. The other thing that was significant is we haven't seen any secondary symptoms on green. The concern I had as general manager is we didn't know where the footprint was. We're about to spend a whole lot of money. Like with the infected area was well over $20 million, and I wasn't prepared to do that without knowing where the actual infection footprint was, because we could be taking out a whole lot of orchards and still have a whole lot behind us. So really trying to determine that still. With the rate of progression we're seeing on gold, we have made no changes to the management strategy or the cutout strategy on gold, but with green now we're only cutting on secondary symptoms. It's not an ideal position because we've got infected green orchards out there, but as long as they're not secondary and we're keeping up protect and spray programs on that, well, the risk of spread of inoculum is fairly low. Just a reminder of the process in terms of the on-the-ground management. We're out there monitoring orchards, as I said. Where we think it's necessary, we're taking samples, realising, of course, that those samples are going to take some time to get a result from. Along with that, if we see secondary symptoms or any Italian isolate results, we open a case management file straight away. That's where we've got the 47 cases open. Those orchards are then mapped for infection. Then according to the mapping, the level of infection, we then proceed with a cutting regime. And once that's cut out, we go back to monitoring those orchards. The financial support package you're all pretty familiar with. But an important point, the package applies to the 2011 season. That's what we've set it up for. And once we go into, after the harvest, we'll be reviewing that package. We'll also be reviewing what we're doing with our cutout strategy. So that covers the package covers the purchase of the crop, 2011 crop, regeneration cost. We're paying for the cost of vine removal, plus there's a spray subsidy for Italian affected growers at $150 per hectare per application. What I'd like to do now is hand over to Greg Clark and get Greg to give you a rundown on the R&D program.